Hi, this is Garrett Wong, and I played Ensign Kim on Star Trek Voyager, and you're listening to Kneel Before Pod.
Kneel Before Blog presents Kneel Before Pod.
Hi, it's your deputy host Angus again. In honour of Rogue One, a Star Wars story, Natalie, Aaron and I decided to commit our thoughts to a podcast. Let's get to it. Today with me,
the lesser podcast crew.
Angus, is Aaron.
Hello.
Hi Aaron.
Wait, Angus is Aaron.
And Natalie. Hello Natalie.
Are you actually introducing me like that?
Yes. Okay.
You two should always do the intros, by the way. I think that would just be the best double act intro, and we should always do that.
Really?
Yeah. It could become the thing. It could become the thing that Kneel Before Pod's known for.
Oh, tell me more. Hello?
Hi.
You're supposed to still say hi.
Yeah, that's the point at which you say hello.
Thank you.
We're here today to talk about Rogue One again.
Can I say that sounded a bit like a funeral?
Off to a good start. So, pre-spoiler alert, let's have your initial thoughts, your initial reactions to the movie. Aaron, what did you think?
I wanted to like it more. I think I did like it. I think that it suffered strangely from not having that coming home familiar effect that that episode 7 had. You know, there was no characters we already knew, and it was so weirdly different for that. But there's some things in it that I did still really enjoy. Okay,
Natalie, what about you?
I actually liked it because of the characters and not knowing who they were. It was like a new beginning for them.
Mm-hmm.
A new hope.
Well, yes, indeed. It led to that.
No, but I did enjoy parts of it, but then the bit where I thought it was going to end, it didn't end, and it kept on going for a wee bit. So, I don't know. I think when I become aware of time and how long a movie is while I'm watching it, I don't always feel like that's a good thing.
Probably not, no.
But other than that, I did enjoy it, and I really want main person's outfit.
Main person?
Yeah.
That's good knowledge.
Jin.
Yeah. I think I was a victim of the hype.
She's got a cool jacket.
I had this built up quite a lot, and people whose opinions I trust told me that this was better than The Force Awakens, so I was kind of expecting an amazing Star Wars experience, and I did enjoy it. But even though we've spoken about The Force Awakens and how it's a bit kind of derivative, I still think I enjoyed The Force Awakens more.
Yeah.
Probably similar to you, Aaron. You mentioned the sort of feel of homecoming or the going back to these familiar characters. I just don't think kind of lived up to what had been built up to me for.
I wonder if it had too much of a bridge to get across for that first ever film that wasn't part of the main franchise. It was almost like it was not doomed to failure, but it was such an ask to try and get something that people were going to love as much as the characters you're already in love with. That, is that even going to be possible? I don't even know.
Mm-hmm. I think it's quite possible that in time I might feel quite differently about it because it'll fit into the saga, or it'll be a sort of additional story that you'll just kind of see as the rest of it. But yeah, like you say, I suppose there's a couple of minor characters here and there that fit in, but yeah, it just didn't feel the same.
Somebody had to go first, I guess. So there was. Yeah, I don't know if there was another story waiting in the wings, and they just had to. Which one are we going to put out first? And this was what they thought was the best, or this was what they thought they could they could afford to sacrifice. That would be interesting to know from the producers.
Wait, we're supposed to be in spoiler-free, right?
Yes.
Ah,
Why
okay.
do you want to dive right into spoiler territory?
Well, only because
we could call on Craig to sound the spoiler alarm, and then you can
as long
talk
as it's
about whatever
not
you
too loud, because it always hurts my ears.
Yeah, you want to move on to spoiler territory?
Wait, what does Aaron think?
Aaron?
I'm struggling to say much more without going into talking about the film. So
pretty difficult not to mention important plot points. So
Okay,
Craig,
go.
Fire the hooter or whatever you've got, and we'll move into spoiler town.
Okay, spoiler time starts with me
Okay,
then.
Natalie, you definitely had something spoilerific you wanted to
I
say.
can't remember what we were just talking about. What was it? Yes, so them bridging this gap that Aaron was talking about. That whole, it felt like it existed just to plug up every single plot hole that people had brought up in the last, 30 years since it existed. The whole, how did everyone get into the Death Star? How did they manage to find that perfect little, weakness? And part of me was a bit like, oh, they've actually just written this to sort of stop people ragging on their ass about how people got into the Death Star.
If that's what they did, then that is really disappointing, because there shouldn't be a need for that. It is space opera. Stuff happens because it happens. You don't need to fill the gap with detailed, gritty plot.
Space opera. Is that a real term?
That's a
real term. Great.
Yeah.
That's
great.
What I've never heard
all
that.
This time.
A space opera.
But yeah, I know what you mean. I think obviously the first Star Wars film was kind of made without ever knowing that it would blow up into this massive franchise with all kinds of merchandise and just sort of global following. And now, feeling like you've got to fill in the gaps and have prequel trilogies to kind of tell what happened before, and then how we got to Star Wars. Yeah, I mean, it's all very kind of strange to lead into a film that then was probably quite indie and out there at the time when it was made.
No, I know what you mean, though. It is really disappointing to think that they've created it or for that, and I don't think that they have created it for that purpose, but it didn't stop me from feeling that, and so I felt a bit kind frustrated.
Of billed as a side story that's not part of the main saga, but then it takes place, alongside those events, and it kind of leads right up to the beginning of Star Wars, aka A New Hope.
I really like that some of the footage from the movie is from older Star Wars. I wonder if it was the binocular scene or something like that. That footage looked pretty old.
Yeah, I mean, they've managed to capture the kind of feel of the originals, I think.
And they do have bitching outfits.
They do. Good moustaches as well. Trying to recreate that kind of 70s sci-fi look.
Do you think they actually tried to make this film more modern in some way to try and acknowledge that the audiences are different or they've grown up? Was it? I'm wondering now, thinking on it, was it actually space opera, or was it more almost what you've described, literally an indie film of today rather than an indie film of the past? Yeah,
I think it doesn't have the same kind of naivete or something that the original did, despite the fact that they're supposed to run together almost seamlessly. There's a
strange thing in the originals where you suddenly realize they are actually killing people, even though it feels like this family-friendly, everybody can watch it with your grand film at Christmas. And you just don't notice because it's got this almost innocence to it with a space opera. But I don't think I would have said that about Rogue One.
But are you trying to say that you can't watch a film with your grandparents that's got killing in it? Because, what about all the grand people who like Die Hard?
Well, I possibly had a more traditional grandma then who didn't want their 6-year-olds watching death on screen somehow.
Might not have been so happy with sort of laser blasters. Did you ever
watch The Snowman?
Did you ever watch The Snowman?
I didn't. Did you ever watch The Snowman? I didn't. 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 I didn't
Who dies of blaster shots in the snowman?
No, but the snowman melts, and it's so depressing. It's so
Yeah, but
sad.
nobody murders him. They don't put him in a microwave just to see the bugger melt. I mean,
No, but he's created by man and then left out to be destroyed by the sun, which the boy knows is going to come up the next day. And
but he doesn't specifically put him out there so he can watch him die and laugh as it happens. You know, it's not murder.
No, I'm not saying laughing, but it's pretty cruel and twisted.
Sort of malevolent reading of the snowman, I think.
Yeah.
My mum puts it on every Christmas, and I'm always like, this is so depressing. Why do you get so much enjoyment out of this?
Because you like watching the snowman melt, now we know.
Oh God, honestly, it's so sad.
But you love
Anyway.
Home Alone, and there's tons of violence in that.
Yeah, but it's funny because they deserve it. Anyway, I digress. Where are we?
I mean, yeah, like you said, the original was kind of about a guy and his dog that fly around in space.
Star Wars.
Yeah, you know.
Whose dog? Oh, don't call him a dog. He's a person.
Well, he's based on George Lucas's dog. But you don't really get the same sort of road trip, sort of wacky adventure so much in this because it's quite gritty and
Oh my God, I don't
more
want
of
to
a
think
war
of it
film.
as being like a man and a dog.
It's about
A man and a dog.
That's what it's about.
Just say man and his best
Oh.
friend, and that's fine. There we go.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I've never considered Chewie to be like a dog, ever. Like I've never considered it like that.
You never see a dog sticking its head out a car window and think that looks a bit like Chewie and the Falcon.
Well, I know that dogs do look like him, but like he's his own species. Like he's a person.
You never seen a dog in the park pick up a bowcaster and blast the ball to pieces?
We've all seen that.
Well, anyway, thanks for ruining it for me. Is it actually about his dog? Is it actually about his dog? Because that is actually so cute.
I'm sure I heard that he used to drive around in his pickup truck with his dog in the passenger seat, and that's what Han and Chewie's based on.
Was his dog called Chewbacca?
We called the dog Indiana. I think it was actually called Indiana.
Was it actually?
Yes.
Oh my God. Oh, that's kind of really cute. But anyway, we should probably talk about, are Star Wars side stories a good idea?
Well, I don't think that this is a side story. Like I've said, I think it fits too kind of
Then why is it on the agenda?
conveniently into the rest. It's on the agenda.
Don't stick so rigidly to the agenda. Don't.
Yeah.
I didn't make it. I'm just wondering why it's there if if we're not considering it a side
Do
story.
you think they
Don't
are?
fear the agenda. It is not your master.
Okay, thank you.
Do you think that all
I've
Star
gone
Wars Rogue One? Bing. Should all Star Wars films follow the same saga? Should they all take place?
Maybe they shouldn't, but
Should it all be the story of the Skywalkers?
Okay, maybe they have to break out of that though, because if we're going to try and have films that are suitable for the modern age, and they're trying to bring in an audience that's used to a different film, maybe that kind of saga just can't happen. Because I mean, I was very surprised you say how, certainly with the opening, even if it didn't continue all the way through, that they went for a gritty film, and I wondered, was that the influence of people in the industry saying, "Oh, we need grittiness"? You know, the DC films, like we won't do just hilarity superhero films. We need dark and gritty. And is that just what the modern audience expects now? So you can't have a good old fashioned saga.
When were
so.
Star Wars hilarious though?
Well, they've got kind of comic moments.
They've got
don't they?
a comic charm. They have relief moments. Every single
Everything
movie
C-3PO does.
has that. But I didn't see Rogue One as gritty.
No, not compared to Ewoks.
Well, how are you? Aw. How are you defining gritty?
Well, the opening scene to me, I think, was a massive surprise where you
Right,
see
I
who
can't
you
remember.
assume is going to be like if not the hero, at least the main character, and you know they're on the side of the good guys because of who's chasing them. And then one of the first things he does is just not randomly, purposefully murder somebody in what is cold blood because he has to. And all of a sudden you're presented with a rebellion that is not this nice group of people fighting for their freedom. It's no, these guys are suppressed. They are desperate.
What happens at the beginning?
So the one of the main characters kills his informant, and because his informant isn't going to be able to get away, and he's going to be able to give secrets to the Empire that the rebellion can't afford them to have. Now, he could, if it was a nice film and sort of Indiana Jones style, he could have done a big action sequence, rescued the guy, thrown him into some sort of speeder, and they've gotten away happy. But he doesn't do that. He says, no, there's no way we can get away. I don't want to have to kill you, but I'm going to say something nice to you to get your trust and then shoot you in the back.
Oh,
yeah, it definitely paints a different picture of the rebellion. And then, as you say, later on, one of the main plot point is that it's the same guy, Cassian, brings up that they've all done things in the name of the rebellion that they have to live with. And so they have to kind of follow through and see it to the end, because otherwise they'd have done all these things for nothing. They'd have chosen themselves.
This is a bit like Assassin's Creed.
The game or the film.
Makes me think of the film.
I have to wait for the Assassin's Creed podcast to discuss that.
Todos par credo or something.
You have. Yeah, the mission is all. I forget what it actually means, but the cause is everything. It is. Yeah, I see what you're saying now. Yes.
So basically, it's all the same.
The scene. There's a scene that's kind of could be in like a sort of Iraq war movie or something, where there's Imperial troopers in a tank or something going through sort of crowded desert city streets, and they get set upon by insurgents, rebels.
But I think you always find with movies, whenever they're made, they're always going to have a reference or some sort of indicator of what is happening in the world at that time, because that's how people relate to it, right?
But did Star Wars, the original, have some connection then to a 70s war?
It may well have done. I just don't know because I wasn't alive then.
Maybe it was all a reaction to Vietnam.
Maybe it was. Maybe somebody has to visit this.
Well, the prequels were definitely a reaction, or George Lucas's reaction to the Bush administration.
What?
All the political stuff in them is like a big sort of reaction against George W. Bush, I think.
Isn't it that something can't just exist for pure entertainment, and it has to...
Yeah, but you just said that art is influenced by what's going on in the world.
But it is, but it's a shame that we can't have like something pure that doesn't have those tie-ins or influences, or or as a reaction to certain things. What? It's true. Anyway, moving on.
Was this the right side story to go for? Was it, for the first non-saga episode, did you feel like you wanted to know the story of how those Death Star plans were obtained?
I didn't want the gap filling in the plot, but I wonder if I would have accepted a story that had nothing to do with what I'd seen before. I'd be interested to see a film that had no connection to the main characters and what they were involved in any way. It was just, there's this evil empire and other things happened in another galaxy, another solar system. And a part of me wonders if that could succeed, because too many people in the audience would have wanted a connection. But I just don't know. I'm having trouble putting that together. I wonder if that would have been more interesting.
Why would you bother with that though? Like, because we've already sort of seen it.
Well, I think it's difficult because you wonder whether they're going to do this with lots of other sort of minor plot points from the films and sort of pick an event that's sort of mentioned, and then they...
I think this might be the only one that they do it with, because it's the only one that Family Guy have pointed out and said, haha.
Maybe,
this
but then
make sense.
But then I agree with Aaron as well. I think that it would be interesting to see something that takes place, so far away from what we've seen already. We understand the universe or the sort of galaxy that it's all operating in. But it'd be quite good to see, it's the galaxy in Star Wars is massive. There's hundreds and hundreds of planets and systems and things, and all we ever see is a sort of narrow story that follows a few people around, and it always comes back to that. And it's the same in Rogue One. There's characters that pop up that are in the other films as well. So it would be good to see something that's obviously it is related. If we were watching a story of a rebellion against the Empire at some other time or place, it could only be sort of tangentially related, but we would understand the world that we were watching.
And the canon universe is so massive now that there must be other stories, plots that could be picked out and used.
Mm-hmm.
How many have they got lined up?
I don't know.
I think there's going to be a Han Solo sort of origin film.
Which I am quite interested to see that.
I wasn't originally until I heard that Donald Glover was going to be Lando. And now that's all I want to see. I want it to be a Lando movie.
What's so interesting then about a Han Solo film? Why is it because it's got that connection to the old and that is the most valuable part, or is it simply that the character is so interesting?
Probably that, but I'm kind of apprehensive about that because I've heard about potential Boba Fett spin-off, Han Solo origin. I don't know if I really want to see more about the characters I already feel I have an idea about. I'd quite like to see something that sits apart or is a bit separate, or like this introduces a lot of new characters that you can that grow on you, because that was something I thought about when watching this, where I felt like I didn't. Because even in The Force Awakens you see characters that you're familiar with, and it's like that kind of, you get that warm fuzzy feeling from seeing Han and Chewie get back onto the Falcon for the first time in ages. But then in this you have to get to know a lot of new characters, and at first you're a bit like, oh, I don't know, they don't really feel the same. But then you the more you see it, I think the more you begin to enjoy learning about new characters and getting to know new characters.
They definitely grabbed me, but I was really sad because I knew that it would be really short-lived because they were all going to die at the end.
Well, there is that. But then that
wasn't booked though in, was it? I heard somewhere, of course, not necessarily didn't make it true, but I'd heard that was a change that they made later on in the filming. Well,
it just made more sense. Like I didn't know how the film ended, but I presumed because we've not seen them in any other movie that they wouldn't just have these people still existing and then not have them be a part of the other movies.
Yeah, it kind of ties it up neatly that you don't have to ask what happened to these heroes, that we of war, that we wouldn't see them again.
I think the whole fight has got to be wide enough so that they could have been elsewhere working on other things. I mean, they're going to have the same problem with the Star Wars Rebels. What are they going to do with these characters? Because they will definitely be around, and I think they've put the ship, the Ghost, in one of the Rogue One scenes just so it had that connection, that continuity. But you don't need to see the characters. The rebellion is so big. I think that it was the right choice to kill them off because it wouldn't have been the gritty film that was promised with the opening scene if they had kept them alive. But I think the option to keep them alive was there. Just because they weren't on Endor doesn't mean they couldn't have been somewhere useful. Yeah,
that's true. I do think it was an interesting decision then to do that with all those main characters, and I also think it's an interesting commitment for the actors as well. Where if you are getting involved in a Star Wars film, you kind of imagine that that's a big career decision. It's going to affect a lot of the way people see you from then on. But these people have done one Star Wars film. I wonder if that's probably them sort of tied in, to the convention circuit and things, but they're not committed to making, hundreds and hundreds of films.
No, although they can certainly turn up anywhere because they've already had Forrest Whitaker join in with Rogue One, haven't they? So there's always options for them to still sneak into other Star Wars media.
There were a few other than the sort of rebel leaders and things, there were a few pilots and things I think that make it into the original trilogy. So there is a bit of crossover. I suppose that's kind of fan servicey as well, to see that, you know, some of the pilots that survived from Rogue One made it through into the Death Star attack and things like that. It's quite cool.
What did you make of Felicity Jones and her character?
What did I think? I quite liked her. I think she was good. I was worried that she was going to be a bit too much like Rey from The Force Awakens. Just I don't know. They've, you know, the latest two Star Wars films have very similar looking female leads.
They don't look anything alike.
They've both got dark hair. They're white. They're women. They're probably about the same height. They've got the same accent.
Well, I think there's actually a danger there that was possible. I think there's a very limited formula out there for what makes a strong female lead in films these days, and that means there is a danger that they would have been written the same as young female characters in the prime role. So the fact that they managed to break out of the formula well enough so they did come across as different was a success, not guaranteed at all.
Of course they're going to come across different because they're completely different characters.
But they could have been badly written, and they could have been badly written so they were more similar despite their different background.
And they
I think that was a danger.
Grow up without their parents, and then
so does Luke. So does Leia. So does every single.
She had adopted parents.
So you never see them. They never come into her house.
You see her adopted father in this film,
and you don't see her house because it gets blown up. There's no chance to see her house.
Oh, right, sorry. No, but it's just like, oh god, it's like when you look at every single Disney movie and you realise that nobody comes from a house with like both of their parents still alive or any parents. They're all orphans, and I think anyway, we digress again.
Dramatic, darling.
Yeah, but it's true. Like you can't compare Rey and Jyn.
I think you can.
Not if you're going to say that they're similar. Not if you're going to say they're similar.
What do you think of her then? What do you think of her as a leading woman or just a hero in the film?
I enjoyed her.
Do you like her better than Rey?
I don't know, because she's quite different to Rey.
Okay. What do you like about Jyn?
I don't know, I really need to have watched this movie again.
Right.
We saw it twice, right?
Soapbox. I've seen it twice.
Oh, I've only seen it once. I just remember enjoying her character.
She has a good scene when she's talking to all the rebel leaders.
Dad.
And she's kind of stirring them up, and they're all on the edge of giving up when they find out about the Death Star, and then she kind of has a sort of rousing speech to try and convince them to go after the plans.
They're all physically strong. Both of the female leads.
Oh, so they are similar.
They're physically strong. They have really good upper body strength, which I think is quite incredible.
I think the first time I saw the film, she was probably the standout character, because I found that a lot of the rest of them, you know, they were all, I could tell who they all were and what their roles were and things. But I think that I found that the names and the way people were speaking with different accents and things, I found it really difficult to tell who was called what and things. So I could, after seeing the film for the first time, I couldn't refer to any of the characters apart from Jyn by their names because I couldn't understand what they were all called. And so now it's been, you know, having seen it again and read a bit more about it, I'm kind of starting to put names to faces and things. But
like Galen Erso.
Yeah, well, I remembered who he was because he wasn't part of the Rogue One crew. But Aaron, did you think that any of the other sort of main rebels stood out particularly? Cassian Andor, he's got a pretty big role in it.
I'd actually just like to pull you back just quickly to Jyn based on the scene you said, just because it's one of the things I noticed. You know, the bit where she does give that rousing speech.
Yeah.
To me, that really stood out as something I was not expecting, because it is this darker film where everything is just that little bit nasty. And I know she turns inspired by the death of her father, but I wasn't expecting her to then suddenly become very charismatic and to lead a room full of politicians and generals to think, oh yeah, we never thought of that. Oh, let's do it. Brilliant. Yeah, if only we could have done that ourselves. I don't say that it was the wrong thing for her character to do, but I think I was surprised that this moody teenager who hates the world could all of a sudden become not only a Joan of Arc character, but one who was also suddenly a great orator.
Yeah,
it was. I don't know. I didn't.
But is it because she's got like real faith in what she's doing?
Maybe she's just been that inspired by the rebellion.
She's been so inspired, and she's seen what they're not doing, and she's been able to identify it because she's an outsider. Essentially, she's able to identify all of their weaknesses and try and use it to inspire them to become better and bigger than what they have become, which maybe comes into the whole all the bad things that they're doing. It's like don't let this be for naught.
We also know that she was brought up, or she at least spent a lot of time in her youth with Forrest Whitaker's character, and he's obviously quite a sort of fundamentalist when it comes to the rebellion. So I wonder how much that upbringing. I know it wasn't really touched on a bit, and that was something that I felt was maybe a bit weaker in the story, where their relationship wasn't developed so much. When they finally reunite, they have to kind of tell you what their relationship is between the two of them. But yeah, I wonder if you're supposed to sort of infer that she had a kind of radical upbringing with him, and it was kind of ignited again by reuniting with the rest of the rebellion.
Is that before?
I think you're right. Sorry.
Is that after that's after she's seen her dad, right?
Yeah, well, this is when she gets back to the rebel base.
And they go looking for stuff.
Yes, they do.
Okay.
I think you're right. I think that I'm not saying it was the wrong thing to do. I think it was the right position for that character to be. I think she did have to be the one that led them when they ran out of hope. I do agree with that. I think I was just expecting it to come later. I think I was expecting the rebel leaders to say, we have to do this. And that was the higher level talk to the whole people speech. Right. And then I was expecting someone like Jin, who was more of a street level activist, to be in the role, as you say, of Saw Gerrera, because that's her influence. So when the Empire and the AT-ATs are coming at them on the planet, and all of a sudden they realize they're outnumbered, they're surrounded, they don't have the firepower. I think at that point I was expecting her to give the big speech and say, don't give up now, we're so close. And it would be in the grit of the moment that her character would suddenly find the inspiration to push on when nobody else had, because that's what you would do on the street. You either choose to live and take the risk going for what you need, or you die in the gutter.
So you live by the streets, you die by the streets. Yeah. I found it weird that everyone was so reluctant. I was like, you're supposed to be the good guys, and you're all chickening out of like any action. You're just going to sit and do what? Like wait for yourself to get blown up. And I don't know, I found it really strange because it's so jarring with how they're portrayed in any other Star Wars movie. Like it's that's how I read it anyway.
Well, I guess it shows you the sort of scope of the Rebel Alliance, where it's all these different systems and races coming together to fight against the Empire. You don't really see it as much in the early Star Wars films, but then by the time you get to Jedi, they kind of roll out all the different aliens and things that are fighting alongside our heroes.
And I really enjoyed the Mexican guy.
Mexican guy.
Is he Mexican?
He's actually Mexican, and his name is amazing. It's Diego Luna. How cool is that name?
Is he Mexican in the film?
No, he's Mexican in real life.
Oh, right.
In real life.
Diego Luna, also known as Cassian Andor.
Yeah.
The sort of Han Solo stand-in,
Hey,
swashbuckling
you can't call him that.
rebel.
He's his own man.
Yeah.
I liked him right from the start just because of that opening scene that we've already talked about. That was just such a surprise for me that this was going to be what this character was, that I was bought over straight away.
Mm-hmm.
I've just remembered the opening. They're getting chased. He's got like some sort of thing. He hides on like some sort of fifth element and then like sends a guy out or something to like be a distraction or kills him or something.
Yeah, and then he climbs away.
I'd forgotten about that. Weird. Don't know how I thought the movie started.
But yeah, that scene.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought he was good. I enjoyed him on screen and but I don't know. I found his interactions with Jin confused.
Did you think that they were heading for a sort of romantic story?
Well, at some parts it was almost like quite fatherly towards her, and then you think, oh God, they know that they're going to die. Are they going to kiss? But then they don't, and they hug, and you're kind of like, oh, that's nice that they don't have to do that. But then I was like, oh, they should have kissed because they're going to die. So you may as well like.
Nah, when it looked like they were about to lean in, I was just thinking, please
No.
don't let them. Just because it would have been too kind of
Bollywood.
too cliche, I think, just to have them sort of do that right before the end.
I think that.
I know a bunch of people who don't even like that they hugged at the end because they thought it was too romantic. And to everybody that said that, I've gone, they're about to die. You saying in the last moments you don't want a little bit of human contact. Yeah. So, yeah, the hug, I think, was absolutely perfect.
Because you know that you don't want to have to do it on your own, and you've just done your epic battles. So you're going to embrace death, and you're going to embrace what little life you have left.
Yeah, and I think that.
So I don't think there was anything wrong with that.
I think it shows that they were well developed, because by the time that you see the sort of mushroom cloud about to envelop them, even though you've only known them for one film, I think you do feel bad for these characters, that they've gone through all this and that they've achieved what they want. They achieved their goal, but they're ultimately being vaporized.
Yeah. Cassian offered something for me as well that the originals didn't, and this will be sacrilege to a lot of people, but Cassian is more of what Han Solo's banner says he is than Han Solo ever was. I thought Han Solo's dressed up as a rogue, and he looks like a bad guy, and he says the words of a bad guy, but he doesn't really do anything bad. He's not really that sort of thief rogue character. Well, saying that he does kill Grebo, I suppose, but they tried to take that away from us.
Yeah, that's true. They tried to
but Cassian is somebody who is broken right from the start. He's somebody that has that banner of this is the character they are, the broken person who has to suddenly find the way to being a hero, but actually has lived that role rather than just wearing the cool open shirt that proves he is,
Yeah,
but Han
he had to do all the dirty work that Han sort of. I mean, Han was just out for himself because he was a smuggler, so he would. Whereas I suppose Cassian had done all these things in the name of the rebellion.
Yeah, I don't think you can maybe not compare them so closely or critically, because Han Solo was a smuggler, and even up to like The Force Awakens, we know that he's still up to his dirty tricks because he owes like several people, loads of shit. And he's got himself in loads of trouble because people are out searching the galaxy for him again, despite the fact that he's like older and should know better. But he still just dicks about in space. He's
still a scoundrel.
And it's funny. And scoundrel's a great word because it's scoundrel. It's got a level of humour to it, which I think he definitely has in the movies. So, but I don't think you wouldn't say Cassian is supposed to be.
No, you wouldn't say Cassian's humorous. A scoundrel.
Yeah, you wouldn't call him that, and I think that's fine. They're just a different kind of rogue.
Yeah, one's more sort of innocent than the other. Han Solo is the scoundrel, and it's a perfect word because it's the word that nowadays would say of a child, "Oh, he's such a scoundrel." whereas Cassian is actually somebody who is crossed and has had to do nasty things.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and I don't think that makes Han Solo a weaker character.
No, I don't.
think
I
it's
would
just
say
like
that. It's just
Cassian-
that's why I enjoyed Cassian more. I think if you ask me which film would I like to watch, I'd rather watch a film with Cassian in it than Han Solo in it because of what they've been involved in.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it
you
makes me
can't
wonder if they're going to do
them.
with the new Han Solo film. Are they going to make him more like Cassian is, so they can prove that he was actually a bit of a bad guy in his youth?
Mm-hmm.
See, just to fill the plot holes that you've or character flaws that you've drawn up. It feels like all of their movies are just going to be to like block any creative idea that we might have had about characters' backstories.
Well, I mean, fans kind of went a bit wild after Star Wars and did all their own fanfic and expanded universe stuff, and it feels like there's almost nothing that hasn't been kind of turned into a spin-off or a side story somewhere. So why not make films about these things?
Okay.
Anyone else stand out to you? What do you think of K2SO?
K2SO.
the heroic robot
Yes.
that holds off the stormtroopers for them at the end
Oh!
and is constantly cracking wise.
I did really like him. Yeah. I did.
Oh, no.
I
Not enough
really
to remember his name, but yeah.
They remember, not enough, well, no, because did they use it? Did they use his name in the movie?
He introduces himself.
Oh, well, I don't really remember, but I do remember that he almost shoots Cassian, and then he's like, oh, it was just messing with you or something, I don't know.
He slaps him about a bit.
Yeah. Oh, and he like chains him up and stuff. No, I remember him, and I did, at first I wasn't so sure, but he definitely grew on me as a character, and he might have been my favourite.
Yeah, another new droid. Is he better than BB-8?
Why are you comparing all the robots?
Oh, that's just how I see the world.
Stop comparing. They're different. They're completely different. At least this one can talk.
True.
In a more verbalized way. Okay. Enjoyed K2.
He was the right robot for the film, wasn't he? If they're doing a gritty film, then they needed a gritty, sarcastic robot. Whereas in the original, in episode 7, where they had more of the saga, more towards the soap opera, they needed to have a cuter robot. So they did what they needed to do with them, and they did it well.
Yeah,
I think he looked like the Iron Giant.
He did look a bit like that, actually. Yeah. And he also, I think that his character was quite well developed as well, because his death was quite poignant. I thought that he was holding off the assault.
Was it like Terminator?
To give the guys time to find the plans.
I don't know.
Sealed the vault door.
Oh.
Although he could take quite a beating, he got shot quite a few times.
Because he's a robot.
Yeah, well, all the other droids that got shot went down far quicker than
but the story features him because he's obviously incredible or different enough from all the others. He's not like all the others, he's different.
He was reprogrammed. Brainwashed into the rebellion.
He can think for himself. That's a lot of Rogue One people.
Well, they do have this kind of crew that I think you're supposed to get to know, even though it's over the course of a short film. It's like or a short time. In terms of Star Wars, anyway, we're used to seeing trilogies worth of people getting to know each other and getting to know these characters, whereas they introduced quite a lot of. That was the thing I was saying about the first time I saw it. There were all these characters that you were getting to know, and they all kind of stand out in their own ways. But it was also kind of rapid in there, and it's this kind of ragtag crew that they put together, the pilot and the two guys that they pick up on the desert planet. I enjoyed them, but I just feel like it was difficult to kind of keep track of who everyone was and what they were all doing. I don't know. Did any of those other guys stand out to you, Aaron? The Donnie Yen, those guys.
Do you know, they all stood out to me, but strangely, because I wonder if it's more because I'm a bit of more of a gamer than I am a film fanatic, that they stood out to me because of being well delineated by their abilities rather than necessarily by their personalities.
Right.
As you had this guy who was clearly a Jedi, not a Jedi, and you had his best mate with a massive gun.
Yep.
And they really were easy to differentiate in my head, but none of them, I would say, did I feel like, oh my God, that was the ending he deserved, you know. I mean, one of them was close, where he goes, "I'm one with the Force, I'm one with the Force, I'm one," and he walks across. That was the closest, and I think that was good. But the other guy, his best mate, was it Bees? I can't remember now. I say it wrong.
Yeah,
I think I don't really feel like he got something that suited who he was, in that, you know, he was born to live this way, he was born to die this way. It wasn't like a Magnificent Seven style gang of people or a Dirty Dozen style gang of people who were defined all the way through by this characteristic that they either lived by the sword and then died by the sword, or they dealt with their major plot personality flaw and then were able to become better because of it. They were abilities on paper that did what they needed to do, and then they died.
Right.
And so I think you're right that the end bit with the two, what I would say are absolutely main characters, Jin and Cassian, that is kind of upsetting when they die. But the others, it was just like, I thought that was good on an intelligent sort of level, but I'm not moved.
Yeah, they were. I feel the same way. They were kind of there to kind of die at various stages throughout, because everyone had to. And so I think the Donnie Yen character stood out the most because he was like the kind of pseudo Jedi, the blind guy with the staff. He had his catchphrase that has kind of been the most sort of lasting thing I think that's come out of the film. I'm one with the Force is with me.
Was that the first time that we've heard that?
Yeah, I think that was his little mantra that he seemed to be unique to him. But I agree with you about Baze as well. He was almost just a sidekick to Donnie Yen's character, because he just kind of followed him around and gunned down anyone that got a bit too close.
Can I just say, I had to Google, because we've got the agenda in front of us and it's got that list of names on it. And I was looking at the last 4 names, so K2SO, but I do remember those. And then the other 3, so Chirrut, Baze and Bodhi, I had to Google them because I was like, who the hell are those guys? But as soon as I see them, I'm like, oh yeah, all of that.
That's what I mean about kind of you have all these characters thrown at you who, because I wonder whether or not we've seen, you know, we've watched.
I feel bad though. Like normally I'd be like, oh, I don't really give a shit, but I actually feel bad because I'm like, oh, they are actually in a huge part, part of the story.
I like them, but
so I feel bad that I'd kind of like I've pushed their parts of the movie.
We've watched and rewatched Star Wars films so many times that we know who Lobot is.
Who's Lobot?
The angry cyborg with no big boy words to say.
Oh.
But
yeah, I know that.
So I wonder whether or not these characters, you know, eventually after years and years of rewatching Rogue One, will it just eventually become part of the fabric of Star Wars?
Are people going to watch it in the same way?
They will.
They are. The same way that we've watched.
So these will become household names, but watching it the first time, they definitely didn't sort of.
I don't know if it will. I mean, it was enjoyable to watch, but I don't know if it's going to fit into the other 7 movies that they've got so far.
I think there's going to be enough Chirrut Imwe merchandise kicking about that he'll eventually become
half price,
as household a name as Greedo or half price, or
I mean, I really enjoyed their characters. I thought he was really funny, but I don't know if they're lasting. I didn't have any lasting impressions of them until I had to Google them, and that's only because I'm prompted by this thing to remember what happened in the movie.
You didn't remember anything about what happened in the movie?
Not like, honestly, but I have to be honest. Normally, Normally when we do these things, we watch the movie, you know, a couple of days before or the day before, or while we're doing these things, I'll watch it, like Aliens or something. But we didn't watch it, and I couldn't remember what happened. The main things I could remember, so maybe it's good because I don't know how many people are actually going to go back and watch this a gajillion times. But I could remember Jin. I could remember her dying with Cassian when they've accomplished what they needed to. I could remember Leia at the end. Mm-hmm. And I could remember...
you must have remembered the Darth Vader bit.
what happens? I could remember Peter Cushing and the whole. I was thinking more about technical things of the movie than plot points.
Do you think those sorts of uncanny CGI characters kind of take you out of it?
Nope.
Because when I saw Cushing the first time, I thought, "Whoa, that's pretty good CGI," and that's all. I was kind of focused on the fact that they'd done this so well, but I wasn't really watching the performance. I was more kind of
it's not like,
impressed by how they were able to pull it off.
But it's not like you're like, oh, I'm watching a dead guy in some sort of weird holograph, because I was thinking it's Star Wars, it's the future, a long time ago, and
it's the past.
And they have the technology for creating holograms and stuff anyway, so it's not like it's a new technology for the movie or a new method of bringing people into.
I don't know.
Where am I going with this?
I don't know if I understand what you're saying or if you understand what you're saying.
The way that they introduce him as like some sort of hologram, right?
No, he's a normal, living, breathing Governor Tarkin.
Then I definitely missed that because it was so good. Because it was so good.
I think they got away with it, but I was definitely kind of thinking more about the fact that they had this CGI version of him rather than still being in the
I'd
film.
forgotten he was dead. and he died in 1994.
What did you think when he showed up, Aaron?
I actually bought into him perfectly well. Somehow the voice was good enough, and as you say, the CGI was good enough that I was only going to be bothered that he was going to be brought in as a gimmick. Yeah. And I think Leia was brought in as a gimmick, and I really didn't need to see her. I think it was utterly pointless. But shut your face. No, pointless. But as for seeing somebody who was in charge of the Imperial troops at that right point, he felt like he was exactly who you would expect to see, and he was in the place he needed to be, making decisions, telling people what to do, in charge of his people. I think he slotted in perfectly.
Yeah,
It was only Leia that was a total waste of time.
No, I agree. I liked having him in there, and I do think that the Leia thing was more jarring at the very end. But once Tarkin kind of shows up, and I'd reacted and thought, "Wow, that's good CGI," and I was thinking that rather than thinking about the character or the story.
Like it took you out of it.
Yeah, a wee bit. But then, you get used to it, and then he's there, and he's actually in it for quite a lot.
I was going to say he's not in it for that long, but
no, there's a fair amount. When I heard that he was going to be in it, I assumed it would just be like a kind of quick reference or a quick nod to the fact that he existed at this time. But I was kind of impressed by how much of it, like how much his character played into it.
Do you not think it's mental?
I'm
going to say no, but I don't really know what you mean. So.
Do you not think it's mental that you can be dead for 23 years or 22 and a half and still be in movies, but not as a dead person?
I think it was one of the best examples of this kind of
technology
tech that you've seen. Yeah, because you've seen like the kind of de-aging stuff in Tron, Westworld, and things like that. But I think this was
Benjamin Button.
And Benjamin, no, not that. But I think this is like the high point so far for being believable and accepting that a character who looks the same as he did in 1977 looks on screen now.
Right. And better placed, I think, than even Vader, who I was wondering what they were going to do with, and I did not get anything out of Vader at all in this film. No, not. The thing is, it might be, though, because I've been watching, again, Star Wars Rebels, and when they've brought Vader into that, he's always been amazing, and it's so difficult to live up to. I mean, even when the character appears for the first time, the look of the situation they've placed him in is just gorgeous. And then he is this powerhouse on screen, and he is just better than everybody else. He's better than the normal people, obviously, but he's also better than the Jedis. He just wins. And he's this force to be reckoned with. And here in Rogue One, he threatens a guy, and he talks slightly nastily. And there's the bit at the end where you've got the rebel troopers stuck in a corridor with him, and you know they are screwed. And that is close. That's the bit where he suddenly shines, because you realize the power of this guy. But the rest of the film, all of his appearances don't live up to him in that corridor, which is a very short scene. That's a shame, I think.
I'd agree. I think that of the two times he shows up, I really like his castle and his sort of gothic lava fortress that he lives in. I really like that. I liked seeing him in the Bacta tank, but I thought that the scene with Krennic wasn't all that great. And then I would agree with you. And when he shows up at the end and just goes mental, his proper Vader, that's what you want to see. You just want to see him kind of unleashing, don't you?
I don't even need to see him fighting, actually. I'm happy to see him talking and just being this power that everybody's afraid of. But I don't think that just seeing him with one scientist covered that, or seeing him in, as you say, in the tank. I don't think that did that.
I don't know. I just like those. I just think like the imagery of it, like of his castle and of him in his tank.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on Vader?
I do actually, but they're not really about what you guys have talked about, which is interesting. But I remember being a bit distracted by him wearing like the inner tubes of bicycles around his neck. I was like, where did he get that from? But I remember speaking to Gus about it afterwards, and apparently they were trying to make it look more authentic to the time of what Vader looked like in the earlier ones, and not the more modernised, older Vader.
I read that they were trying to match it up to how he looked in the first film.
But I think they did it a bit too much, because it wasn't very discreet, and it just looked really strange. It looked like a seal had been put into a wetsuit. I'm just like, honestly, I don't like.
Oh, amazing.
So I found it really distracting, but I mean, if you guys want to talk about his on-screen presence, I don't know, I found it I can enjoy him because I was distracted.
Place the seal in the wetsuit.
Well, at the time I didn't know that that's what I thought it looked like. That's just something I said, Renee. So,
I think it's interesting that we've gotten this far talking about elements of the plot and the characters and Vader and all sorts of things, and we've not mentioned the main baddie in the film.
Who?
Although he does have he's got a pretty good dress sense. I thought I liked him swishing about in his cape a lot.
Who?
Krennic.
Orson Krennic. Hold on, I'm going to Google him because I can only remember her dad, Galen Erso. Oh, I love him. He's so cute. Wait, hold on. Google images.
But other than that, other than his nice cape and hat and outfits.
Oh my God! Orson Krennic is above Orson Welles on the Google like predictor wordy things. Yeah, but he looks familiar. He's been in the other ones, right?
Other than his outfit, I don't know if he stood out massively.
Has he been in the
as
other
a baddie.
ones? Why is he not Christoph Waltz? I feel like that could have been awesome.
I think he suffered from the kind of thing that we talk about with the Marvel villains, who have to last a film and then get vanquished at the end. I think he was a bit too, here and then gone. What do you think, Aaron?
He was. I don't know. He was in the right place. He did what he needed to do. As you say, he was dressed so well.
He was. He had a great cape.
He did.
I struggle to place him actually, and where I think of him, because he wasn't the threatening power that is Tarkin.
No,
and he was a bit of a. We need some guy to be evil, and we need some guy to threaten Jin's father. Are you free? Yeah, I'll do it. And then I find myself struggling to think of what else I think of him.
Yeah,
I thought he was where he needed to be. Sorry, that's all I can say.
Yeah, I think he just serves the purpose of being the main antagonist, and then that's really it. Like we've said with a lot of other kind of one and done movie villains. He sort of there, shows up, sneers a bit.
I feel really bad for this guy because
I think it was a good performance. I just don't think that the character was all that.
No, I mean
interesting.
I feel really bad for the guy because I don't remember.
You don't remember anything about it. You don't remember anything about it.
I remember. I remember the cape. I remember somebody. I remember like someone coming up to Mickelson and like threatening to like do something to him. I remember him being really upset, and then he sees his daughter, and then he's lying like half dead on the ground. I remember that bit.
I think the character had potential because they touch on the fact that he wants to have an audience with maybe not an audience with the Emperor, but he wants the Emperor to know about what he's been doing and his work and things. And then Tarkin kind of takes the credit for the Death Star, and you see Krennic going to Vader and trying to ask him if he'll mention him to the Emperor and things. So he's supposed to be this kind of sniveling, kind of weaseling guy. But I don't think you ever really get the proper impression that that's his main sort of drive or anything. He just kind of swishes about and then shows up and does what he needs to do. But you don't. I think that side of him was kind of underdeveloped.
Going by the outfit that I've googled of Orson Krennic, I can't help but feel Christoph Waltz would have looked absolutely gorgeous.
Then you just have more Hans Landa, and you can't have Han and Lando.
Well, I'm sad that didn't happen because I love him. That's just me. And then, yeah, I think I'm going to have to watch this movie again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do want to watch it again, so I suppose do I? Yeah, no, I think I do.
Yeah, you do.
But maybe, I don't know, I feel like I'd maybe like skip a wee bit.
Do you remember the big climactic battle?
Is that when it was like they were on a beach and it made me think of like all the old black and white photos of like World War One?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Were you about to like question that? and Aaron's like, oh yeah, no, like she's onto something here.
I was thinking which part, because it wasn't like there was a landing or anything, but...
Hold on, World War One, beach.
I was
fighting.
thinking of it more like
beach
sort
landing,
of
beach
Pacific
battles.
theatre in World War Two.
Look, it totally... So I've just looked up Juno Beach, Normandy, and all that stuff. It totally, like, not that I know much about this part of history, which is really bad, but there were a lot of scenes which made me think of, do you know how, like, online you'll see photos of beaches nowadays, and they'll have, like, a superimposed image of what it looked like during the wars? And they'll have like that of, look, this is like you're lying on this beach, but this is where all these people were like running over and fighting for all of this stuff. And I don't know, a lot of the scenes really made me think of all of those old photographs that I've seen of all the battles.
I think there is a minor danger here that I was also guilty of mixing up World War One and World War Two.
Oh, damn it. Why?
Generally the feeling that you're going for of it was a horrible fight where the little guys are being pounded by artillery from that World War setup is definitely what they were going for.
Yeah, but I also wonder if I was to watch it now, if I could like pick out if they've actually, directly lifted like particular images of battle for the use of their movie, because it there was a familiarity to it. Like I don't know if there have been any other beach battles in Star Wars.
No, I think this was quite a new environment.
So, it definitely evoked like much older like feelings. So I don't. Maybe they're.
It did look a bit more like an old war movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Certain bits.
So, but I remember that because I remember thinking, "Whoa, this looks pretty like close to." And they seem to do that. The last movie, like. They seem to be referencing like that sort of war history quite a lot. Mm-hmm. A lot of imagery is the same. They used a lot of like Nazi type stuff, and they still have sort of like uniforms which really evoke
definitely.
And I find that really confusing because obviously back when this was originally made, we weren't that far away from that being our history. So if you were going to watch it, see with your granny and granddad, because that was their viewing, they'd maybe, have very different feelings about particular scenes because it would maybe make them think of how terrible that was. But it's really strange that they're continuing to use that or borrow that.
It kind of follows on from the originals as well, where even the sort of space battles were supposed to be like Spitfires and fighter planes and things going at it in the sky. I think that was quite an influence on Lucas when he wanted to have that kind of those space battles. Do
we know if his family have like close connections or are connected to the wars?
Probably.
I'm gonna have to Google it.
He's the right age.
Well, I mean, because I just mean like he doesn't. It doesn't seem to be moving away from that.
Well, he didn't have anything to do with this one.
Okay.
But I think that that sort of influence was in the first trilogy. Maybe not. Well, it might have been in the prequel trilogy, but it's definitely sort of come back in The Force Awakens and in Rogue One.
Yeah, definitely.
Because there is the space battle in this one as well, when the Rebel Alliance, who had decided not to do anything when Jyn was trying to get them to go after the plans, suddenly all say, all right, we're taking the fleet and we're going to go and help out. They kind of changed their minds quite quickly.
Yeah. What do you think, Aaron? You've been pretty quiet.
I was letting you talk. It was interesting chat. I don't need to hear the sound of my own voice just for that.
You do, because I do, because I never know if I'm like going off on like some major tangent.
Well, let's if I try and pick up on something you said, then if they were trying to do a space battle, I wonder if they were forced to try and use our knowledge of World War One and World War Two to give us the context. Because if they'd have tried to have done a battle in a different way, we might have just thought it was weird or silly. So do people, when they're creating films like this, have to use our assumptions of what we think a battle would look like to actually make it seem believable?
Hold on. So. Why would it be weird or silly? Because
if you did, say you did a fight between X-Wings and TIE fighters, and you tried to make it as different as possible to the World War dogfights, then might it have seemed too abstract and therefore not a believable fight scene. Whereas if you connect it to the dogfights that we got taught about in school, that we've seen in war movies, that part of our brain can say, yeah, I believe this is a desperate fight between two sides, and one of them is going to come on top and the other's going to die horribly, and I'm there and part of it.
What do other movies do? I mean, I know other movies make it more like animalistic, where it's like predators and use like that sort of influence rather than like real.
Well, I think if they've got humans involved, if it's purely a human fight and they've already put in politics and large armies, then I think they are trying to do something very similar. So
like there's no denying it.
Well, like Battlestar Galactica uses that sort of dogfighting, and I think it's pretty much the same thing. And you definitely see Galactica itself as an aircraft carrier, and the only things that I've seen are slightly different are shows that I don't know now. I'm trying to think. Babylon 5 that used spacecraft. They tried to make it more realistic by having 4 jet engines spaced quite far away from the cockpit, so they could try and make more realistic spinning of the fighters or something like that. But still, when they were going at full speed, I think it was pretty much dogfighting like you'd expect from a Spitfire from the 40s.
Maybe it's just all we know. Maybe
well, I think it helps you to identify with it, and it gives you you can connect to it on a sort of familiar level. Gives you that sort of feeling of jeopardy and the sort of close quarters battle, even though it's happening in what's probably quite a vast area of space.
Yeah, if they tried to do something where there was infinite distance between the ships because it was that big space, would there be a lot of us going, Well, they're not there together yet. And there's this one group of people fighting here, and the other groups of people are fighting several miles away. It would have been a bit 2001 Space Odyssey, where it's just, and you watch space for 10 minutes.
Wait. I still haven't seen that movie, and I know that I've said in a previous podcast that I definitely would.
If you intend to direct films, watch it. Otherwise, I wouldn't worry about it.
I think that's what you said the last time.
It is, I'm afraid so.
Isn't it weird? Isn't it weird that they have like the entirety of space and yet they all hang out in the same bit?
That's just Star Wars, though, isn't it?
But isn't it weird?
Everyone always ends up in the same place.
But it's weird. Like
maybe it's human that people want to come together.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also really strange. Like there's so much of space.
True, but I think that in this film in particular, you know, you've got the fighting on the beaches, you've got the dog fighting going on above them. It all helps make it feel as if it's all part of one battle, one struggle.
I want to find out what happens when, maybe in a future one, the biggest person who's going around kicking shit up, like will be an even bigger baddie, you know, that's dominating multiple galaxies and everything. So who's the bad guy above Darth Vader? What's his name?
The Emperor.
Yeah, the Emperor. That guy. Well, he's just the Emperor of like one tiny bit. Do we think that they might introduce like some sort of
don't let him hear you say that?
Like,
because he's like the Emperor of like the Empire. Isn't that sort of big?
Yeah, but like that could be like how we consider, I don't know.
Well, we don't know.
That could be like the size of Iceland in space.
We don't know. We don't know if there's anything else beyond the Empire.
No offense, Iceland.
But beyond the outer rim.
But do you think that they'll introduce like someone far greater on the levels of like the Doctor Strange massive blob thing that becomes like all encompassing?
Dear God, I hope not. That would be awful.
No, I don't think they would.
But there must be someone greater than the Emperor. Like there must be like
don't
something.
Don't be bringing religion into this. There's no need for that.
But do you not think like maybe oh my God, maybe it'll become about religion.
It's science versus magic all over
maybe
again.
Like the Empire, maybe the Empire and the Emperor are like one part, and maybe we're going to see like, you know, like you were saying earlier, they might introduce us like to a whole new story, and then maybe we'll have 8 movies of that, and then eventually
I can't see
they'll crash into each other.
I think we understand the Star Wars galaxy on a certain level, and I think everything is going to take place on that level.
There's no more galaxies.
There might be, but I don't think that there's going to be sort of interdimensional being or, you know, indescribable horrors.
Why not?
Well, it could be, but I just don't see it going that way.
I hope it doesn't go that way. I think that suits the genre of superheroes and fantasy, but not space opera as is. Keep it about people.
Yeah.
Well, you say this now. In about 8 movies, maybe you'll think differently.
Well, what I would like to see in some of these movies is something that I've only seen in Rebels, because I've not read all the books and comics, so it's probably in them as well. But in a later series of Rebels, they put in a third branch of the Force. So if you did want a bit more of a religious or should we just say spiritual side to it, I'd quite like to see this third branch of the Force explored a bit, where they are beings, I think, that recognize the light and the dark, but don't try and sit in either. So they're effectively either nothing or they're neutral. And I thought the character I've seen there was quite interesting.
So wait a minute, like, isn't that what's her face is in The Force Awakens? The one that looks like that other character from the other movie?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, actually Force sensitive, but not one of them. With the big eyes. I've forgotten her name already.
Yeah,
Carol loves
that one.
Yeah.
Maz Kanata.
Maz. Yeah, I knew it was like a meh. Yeah, because if it can exist in their comics, why can it not exist in the movies? Because it obviously exists as part of the universe now. Like, as soon as you put anything out connected to it, then I think it has to maybe be felt or seen in any other.
Well, I think you're right, and I think I would happily watch a film that is based in the universe, using some of these concepts that isn't so connected to the fall of the Empire, set it at a different time or just set it in a different place and show us how other people of completely different types are dealing with the problems that are clearly going on and must be affecting the whole galaxy.
And then we'll see their planet get blown up by the Death Star from episode whatever, and it'll all be linked again.
Well, I agree. I think that the most interesting things they could do would be totally original or, unconnected. I just fear that we're just going to get spin-offs and kind of origin stories and things that, I'll probably get hyped up for when they're about to come out. And because, Donald Glover is Lando, who doesn't want to see that? But yeah, I just don't get the impression that they're going to go too out there with many of the additional films, unless further down the line.
I was pretty excited when episode 7 came out, and I really enjoyed it. But I don't know, I felt like Rogue One was kind of going to pass me by. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it.
Maybe this thing like Rogue One then it is just going to be a bridging film. It's connected to the old stories, but they're slowly trying to move us away from it. Like in the Marvel universe, Doctor Strange is just teasing out a bit of magic just to see if we'll accept it, and then it will move further away.
It wasn't the first one to have magic. Let's remind ourselves of that. But also, I don't agree with what you said, because it can't be teasing us away from Star Wars and the stories that we know when it's focusing so much on a huge part of the plot of one of the first ones.
Plus, whatever their release schedule is like, they're going to have your Star Wars story, then Episode 8 the next year, then the next year there'll be another side story, and then the next year will be the sort of conclusion to the new trilogy. And I don't know, it seems as if until the saga is sort of finally complete, it doesn't seem like they'll be able to stray too much from it, because everything else will have to tie in somehow, or just for cynically marketing purposes, they'll have to, everything's going to somehow be part of the familiar, until maybe we get to a point where that's when they decide, right now we can finally kind of branch out and explore something a bit different.
Yeah. And what else have we got here? Other Star Wars stories. I think we've said what we want to see from the future.
So. Yeah.
We haven't talked about the music, and I remember in The Force Awakens totally loving
Rey's
the music.
Theme.
Yeah, like all of it. It's just like, it was just amazing. I've got it on Spotify. Like, I love listening to it, but I don't really remember like a lot of the music. I'm sure there was some.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I remember coming out of the film and not really remembering any of the themes or much of the score. Like, it didn't kind of stick with me in the same way as, obviously, The Force Awakens has the kind of familiar Force theme and stuff as well, so it's easier for you to remember that.
Do you think that's a new thing that they're moving into with the side stories?
Well, I think this was the first one that wasn't scored by John Williams, so that's probably why.
I'm really sad then, because I didn't know that, and I was maybe like thinking that it had like gone past me, or I'd missed it, and I don't know, it's kind of sad.
I'm open to non John Williams scores, because obviously he's not going to be able to do it forever.
Oh,
but
no,
I just think
they'll bring him back like Peter Cushing.
I wonder again if
they'll find a way.
Life finds a way. I just wonder if it'll grow on me because it's not as familiar as everything else.
I think that's what I liked about it when we went to see it, was that it was kind of familiar, but everything was different, and so that made it a bit exciting. But then kind of where the story fit into everything else. But it still retained some sort of like new elements to it. I feel like I've been a bit overly harsh only because I really couldn't remember a lot of the story, but I do remember that I did enjoy that newness to it.
I think there's tons to like about it, and I think that I'm probably being a bit critical as well.
Yeah, I think I definitely am.
But I can't deny the fact that The Force Awakens kind of got me in a sort of visceral way. and I just didn't get the same. It just didn't get grabbed the same way by Rogue One, even though I really enjoyed it, and I enjoy spending time in that universe and seeing there's all the sort of fan servicey bits and the way it kind of links up directly to Star Wars and New Hope. Just there were certain things about it I really liked, and there were just some bits of it that just didn't seem to didn't latch onto quite as much.
And Aaron, I didn't have time to process the whole bit with Leia at the end, because so the movie ends with her.
Yeah.
Right? And she's talking about how we can have hope, and that, like, something like that's all we've got or something. And it is incredibly poignant, and because everyone else has just died, we know that Leia is going to become more in the future of those movies, in the past, and then as soon, like, I was stepping out of the cinema, and a friend of ours was like, "Oh, she's just died," and we were like, "The fuck." It was so sad, and it made me like so sad, because we'd literally just seen, like, her
CGI young Leia.
Young Leia. Like, I don't know what I'm doing there with. Anyway, Craig will edit it. But we saw her CGI'd, looking all young and weird, but still she was there, and then you were like, we don't have hope because she's dead.
Yeah, but. Yeah.
And they're gonna have to do like loads of like rewrites and change the stories, like what's gonna happen, like, so everything that we might think might happen with the next couple of movies,
it's all gonna be Tarkin.
It's all gonna get changed, because
all the Leia
she'd finished 8 though, right? She'd finished episode 8, but they'd introduced, I think, a huge storyline for her for probably going from 8 to 9. And now they're going to have to change a whole lot of that. And
I didn't hear anything about it. I've not read anything about it.
Apparently it's like it's going to cause some bother.
It's going to be Paul Walker, Fast and Furious 7 all over again.
And I think that's a shame, because we won't know if what I guess it's like what could have been.
I wonder how they handle it though, because I suppose it's a bit like the spoilers for Paul Walker in Fast and Furious, but his character ends up. You knew that he died during the filming, so they didn't have it complete and they didn't have an ending for his character. But he kind of rides off into the sunset rather than dying in the film, which would have been a bit morbid, as he died in real life in a car crash. Yes. So I wonder how they're going to deal with like Leia, kind of not being written out of the film, but they're going to have to deal with it somehow. So how do they move on from the character in a sort of fitting way?
Yeah, I think it'll be strange. It's strange to see, and but it could affect like so much. Like, it's going to require a lot of work, I think, from the writers to have them see the movies made, in the right way. If it's not going to be, the way that they first wanted it. Because that's obviously like their primary choice. If they can't have it, what are we getting? A secondary story?
Well, they'll have to do a tribute to her, because they won't want to do anything else. So it'll have to be something where we either hear about or see using one of the clips they've already got. She gets some sort of sad but meaningful parting or closure. And I imagine it'll have to be something to do with her son killing his own father, where she retires into some state of sorrow because of this travesty, and she won't be able to recover from it. And what her last scene is, I've no idea with that, but it'll have to be a tribute in some fashion.
Yeah, I just hope they handle it well.
Yeah, like that's the whole thing. Like, you don't know now what lies in store for the next movies, because it's not going to be the first choice of story. It's going to be some sort of, but maybe it'll be good, maybe it'll shake it up a bit. I don't know. Who's to say? We don't know.
All right.
So yeah, thus ended.
Yeah, we should wrap it up there.
Stop.
Yeah, always end with a death. Yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts on Rogue One, Aaron?
I could only summarize it, and I think that Force Awakens was one that plays on the heart because it's that familiarity, and you can forgive a lot of sins because it feels so comfortable. Even though there were some good things in it, and I won't say I disliked it, but I think it automatically started out on a higher level than a news story was going to because of that. Whereas Rogue One for me played more in my head, made me interested right from that first scene. I felt like there was so much more for my brain to get involved in rather than just this joyride, which was pleasurable. I don't think it really made me think loads, and there were a couple of things like that bit with the main character. She gives that speech in the place I wasn't expecting, and her final end fight on the top where she takes out the antenna somehow wasn't a big of an ending as I was expecting. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to really like it because I thought it was a better place for the films to go to be in, but ultimately didn't quite become as amazing as I'd hoped.
Not to keep this like going on and on forever and ever and ever, but do we think that it wasn't as big or as splendid as we had in our heads? Because if it had been this big and splendid and incredible thing, then surely we'd have had some sort of reference to it in any of the other movies.
Do you think it's supposed to be sort of like an
almost... I think it's supposed to be
anonymous chapter in the rebellion's history.
I think it's supposed to be that it's this little thing that has happened, which could have happened 10 or 20 times by lots of different groups of people exactly like them.
Well, I think you're right with that, but I think that still the personal loss to the individual 4 or 5 characters involved could have been huge, and that would have still fitted into this grand scheme of things, as you're saying. There could have been... What's the line from one of the other films? So many bottoms died to bring us this information. And you can imagine their story of those people who brought this information would have been absolutely harrowing for those few spies that were doing it. Mm-hmm. So somehow I wanted to hit hard, but not at a galactic fight scene level, but somehow just that bit harder at a personal level.
That's how I was trying to justify it, not being fantastic.
Okay.
But yeah, that was just one idea. Sorry for interrupting. Again.
How very dare you.
I'm sorry. I swear I do this all the time. But yeah, I don't have any other thoughts though. I feel like I am going to have to watch it again.
Yeah, I think that...
we'll see what happens.
I really wanted to like it as well. I as I said, I didn't get the same gut reaction as I did to The Force Awakens, probably because it sort of went for this, cheap, nostalgic heartstrings approach. But I'm perfectly willing to be, impressed by it upon further rewatches and kind of get more into the nuances of the different characters and things. I don't know if it's quite there, but yeah, I think eventually it's going to be pretty highly regarded, along with the other films as well. You can't do much worse than the prequels, so compared to those, it was already started off pretty well. So
I tried to watch episode 2 over Christmas, and my brother was like, "No, let's just skip it." And he was introducing his girlfriend to Star Wars for the first time. And he was like, "Oh, I'm going to start with this one." I was like, "You've got to start it. You've got to watch all of them. You can't just go from 4, 5, 6 to 7." I was like, "You need to have seen the first 3." And he put on episode 2. Now. And we were just like, "Why? Why is this on? This is, it was so boring." And it just took forever to get anywhere. And then we were like, let's just put episode 7 on because it's brought.
Rogue One was definitely not that.
Yeah, so I suppose if it's always compared against that, then it's fine. And I have an apology to make, which I hope Craig doesn't edit out, but I'm really sorry that every time that we podcast, I eat, because I get really snackish and I can't help myself. And then whenever I get asked a question, I've normally got food in my mouth and I feel like it's really rude. That's just my confession.
We'll end with that confession then.
Because I don't know.
Thank you for sharing.
Thanks. Just wanted to get that out there because I told myself I'm not going to have any snacks, and I couldn't not have snacks.
You're one with the food. The food is with you.
Yes, definitely.
Good night, everyone.
If anyone else wants to confess.
Bye.
Bye, Aaron. It was lovely. Okay, we're done. That's a wrap.
Right, there we go.
I wonder if the producer
Craig!
is the producer listening.
Hi guys.
Craig!
I think you should. I think you should cut it, edit it on. You are one. What was it? You're one with the food. The food is one with you.
Yeah.
I think that's how it finishes. I think that's the end statement.
Where's Craig? I thought Craig
I'm
was
here.
hanging out.
Oh,
Yes.
How are you? Hi.
Yeah, I'm here.
I thought I saw
Hi.
that blue square light up.
I came back about 5 minutes ago. I've been kidding.
Oh, that is
back
like
and
for
forth.
the worst part of the chat. You should have been here an hour and 40 minutes.
Well, I'm going to listen to it all anyway while I'm editing it, aren't I? So,
Okay. There's a few points where I stumble over my words. Feel free to not.
I'm looking forward to finding out what sound effect you're going to use to cover up a lot of your swearing.
Please don't make it high pitched.
Some of them
how
might
much
be
profanity have I got to get rid of?
4?
4 or 5 words.
Yeah, 4 or 5. One of them was really long though. I don't know how you managed to
I'm just trying to
like just drew it out for so long. Like I don't know what you would possibly. Maybe the sound of the TIE fighter being like.
Or are you just trying to improve my editing skills? Is that what you're trying to
Yeah.
do?
I'm just being
Everything's
a
a learning
challenge
experience.
for you, Craig. Taking you to the next level. No, but sometimes it's necessary. However, please don't, whatever you choose, don't make it high pitched, because I tried listening back to like the Doctor Strange one, and every time that we say strange, ding, I'm like, oh god, we say it so much, and it's so annoying.
I loved it. I thought it was brilliant.
I was trying to listen to it today, and I only had 2 minutes on my break to listen to it, and there was about like 6 things, and I was like, oh my god. So as long as it's not like high pitched, then that's okay, because I'm pretty high pitched anyway. So.
Cool. As high pitched as possible. Got it.
But Craig.
I like to. I just hear what I want to hear, and then start making up my own responses to the conversation.
If it's something like pew 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 pew
Martini.
pew grab it.
Yes.
Yeah, there's no shortage of Star Wars sound effects. I'm not due to run out anytime soon.
No.
Feel free to make it. Oh yeah, you could have it be like a Chewie roar.
We'll see.
When I'm like, oh fuck, it could be like.
Stewie when he stubs his toe.
Yeah.
So that sounds
yeah.
like-
Yeah. Or it could have, maybe one day it'll have you talking over it like profanity or something like that.
Nah, it's much better getting sound effects.
You say profanity. I think it'd be great. Or the next Comic Con or something you go to, can you just record them saying the word profanity, and then we can use it like to cover up any swear word. Or somebody saying insert swear word here. That could be a new line for you.
Maybe. I don't know.
For that.
I like to make them bespoke to what we're talking about.
Yeah, insert swear word here.
How did you feel that went? Anyway, I didn't hear most of it. I was kind of back every 5 or 10 minutes just to check that everything was still working.
I felt mostly it was okay, but I felt parts of it dragged a bit. And Angus, your hosting skills are falling flat.
Thanks.
That's harsh. I thought we got good conversation all the way through. I thought that was one solid conversation rather than having this break where you have topic, speak on topic, speak on topic. I thought we blended the topics completely all the way through.
I did think it was quite conversational. I think it was quite good.
And I think
that's one of the best ones we've done, if I don't say so myself, or do say so myself, or whatever.
And all it took was getting rid of me.
Harsh.
Oh, Aaron!
I never said that. I didn't say that. Maybe we've just become practiced throughout the previous ones.
I think the Doctor Strange one was one of our strongest.
I preferred the more conversational.
Mainly the thing about the giraffe.
Shut up, guys!
I love that.
No,
What
I
was the
felt
giraffe? I can't remember the giraffe.
That's why I wanted to see Doctor Strange.
Because you asked, who do you want to see Doctor Strange team up with?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Natalie said maybe a giraffe. And then I had a laughing fit for about 5 minutes.
It's true, he couldn't get off the floor.
For some reason, I remembered that. Remember that in the shared universe one.
Oh, maybe it was that.
I was misremembering. Maybe I'm misremembering.
It was that one. It was definitely Doctor Strange. Yeah, conversation style definitely I think is good. I think I'm just still aware of time and how long we're spending not getting through other things. So, but I think we're working on it, and it sounded good. So, I think it's all right.
Yeah.
And I'm really sorry if you could hear me eat. I tried really, really hard to be quiet.
When the first Rogue One, Kat went to get a pizza. She got a pizza delivered. She was munching it throughout, and we could not tell at all.
Could you not?
No.
Yeah, are you being sarcastic?
No, we couldn't. She kept muting her mic at the right
Wait,
point.
well, that's over of her. I can't do that.
Anyway, so I can just leave.
Anyway, I'm gonna go because I'm gonna watch American Horror Story now. So, I will speak to you guys super soon.
Okay.
Yeah?
See you
And
soon.
I'm gonna get a Cineworld card, so that means we can go see Bollywood.
That threat keeps coming.
Guys, I'm so excited. Honestly, I'm honestly so excited to. And do you know what I'm gutted about? Is that my brother went to see a Bollywood movie, and he said it was like the best Bollywood he's ever seen, but it's not in the cinema anymore, and it's like taken like a gajillion billion times.
Mm.
So anyway,
Right, I better go.
There's that Russian
Yeah.
superhero film. That's good.
So I will catch you next time.
yeah, it was good to chat to you.
Yes,
Bye.
Yeah,
Podcast.
catch you there.
Bye, guys.
Yeah.
Bye, Craig. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Oh, it's still on.
Well, that wraps up our discussion of Rogue One. If you haven't listened to the alternate universe version featuring Kat, Craig and Chris, I highly recommend it. Remember, you can find us on iTunes or wherever good podcasts are sold.